Chapter 23. When Walkabout, Quickening, and Charisman left Morgan and Hornadese, they travelled only a short distance east through the darkened streets of Eldworth before slowing to a halt. Walker and the girl faced each other. Neither had said anything about stopping. It was as if they had read each other's mind. Charisman looked from one face to the other in confusion. "You know where the Stone King is hiding," Quickening said. She made it a statement of fact. "I think I do," Walker answered. He stared into the depthless black eyes and marvelled at the assurance he found there. "Did you sense that when you chose to come with me?" She nodded. "When he is found, I must be there." She didn't explain her reasoning, and Walker didn't ask. He glanced into the distance, trying futilely to penetrate the gloom, to see beyond the mist and darkness, and to find something of what he was meant to do. But there was nothing to be found out there, of course. The answers to his questions lay somewhere within. "I believe the Stone King hides within the dome," he said quietly. "I suspected as much when we were there several days ago. There appeared to be no entrances, yet as I touched the stone and walked about the walls I sensed life. There was a presence I could not explain. Then yesterday, when we were beneath the earth, trapped in that underground cavern, I again sensed that presence. Only it was above us this time. I took a quick calculation when we emerged from the tunnel. The dome is seated directly above the cavern." He stopped momentarily and glanced about. "Eldworth is the creation of its master. Earl Belk has made the city of the old world his own, changing to stone what wasn't already, expanding his domain outward, symmetrically where the land allows it. The dome sits centermost, a hub in a wheel of streets and buildings, walls and wreckage." His pale face turned to meet hers. "Earl Belk is there." He could almost see the life brighten in her eyes. "Then we must go to meet him," she said. They started off again, following the walkway to the end of the block and then turning abruptly north. Walker led, keeping them carefully back from the streets, against the walls of the buildings, clear of the open spaces, in the way of the dangers of trapdoors. Neither he nor Quickening spoke. Charisman hummed softly. They watched the gloom like hawks, listened for strange sounds, and smelled and tasted the damp, stale air warily. A brief rain caught up with them and left them shedding water from their cloaks and hoods, their feet chilled within their boots. Walkabout thought of home. He had done so increasingly of late, driven by the constant, unrelenting pressure of being hemmed about by the city's stone and darkness, to seek out something of what had once been pleasant and healing. For a time he had sought to banish all thoughts of Hearthstone. Its memories cut at him like broken glass. The cottage that he had adopted as his home had been burned to the ground in the battle with the Shadow, and Cogline and Rumour had died there too. He had barely escaped dying himself, and keeping his life had cost him his arm. He had once believed himself invulnerable to the intrusions of the outside world. He had been vain and foolish enough to boast that what lay beyond Hearthstone presented no danger to him. He had denied the dreams that Eleanor had sent him from the spirit world, the pleas that Pa Omsped had extended for his help, and in the end, the charge he had been given to go in search of Paranor and the Druids. He had encased himself in an imaginary walls and believed himself secure. When those walls began collapsing, he had found that they could not be replaced, and those things he had thought secure were lost. Yet there were older memories. Memories of her stone that transcended the recent tragedies. There were all of those years when he had lived in peace in the valley, the seasons when the world outside did not intrude. There was time enough for everything. There were the smells of flowers, trees, and fresh water, springs. The sounds of birds in early spring and insects on warm summer nights. The taste of dawn on a clear autumn morning. The feeling of serenity that came with the setting sun and the fall of night. He could reach back beyond the past few weeks and find peace in those memories. He did so now because they were all he had left to draw on. Yet even his strongest memories provided only a momentary haven. The harsh inevitabilities of the present pressed in about him and would not be banished. He might escape for brief moments into the past, into the world that had sheltered him for a time before he was swept away by the tide of events he had sought foolishly to ignore. Escape might soothe and strengthen the spirit, but it was transitory and unresolving. His mind darted away into his memories only to find the past forever beyond his reach and the present forever at hand. He was struggling with his life, he discovered. He was adrift, a castaway, fighting to keep afloat amid the wreckage of his confusion and doubt. He could almost feel himself sinking. They reached the dome at mid-morning and began their search, working together, not willing to separate if there was any chance at all that the Stone King waited within. They began to explore the dome's surface, walking its circumference, feeling along its walls, and searching even the ground it sat upon. It was perfectly formed, although its aging shell was pitted and cracked, rising several 100 feet into the air at its peak, spreading from wall to wall several 100 feet more. Depressions that had looked of giant thumbprints decorated the dome's peak along its upper surface, laid open like the petals of a flower, separated by bands of stone that curved downward to the foundation. Niches and alcoves indented its walls at ground level, offering no way inside, leading nowhere. Sculpted designs marked its stone, most of them almost completely worn away by time's passage, no longer decipherable, the ruins of a world that had long since passed away. "I can feel a presence still," Walkerbow said, slowing, folding his cloak about him. He glanced skyward. It was raining again, a slow, persistent drizzle. "There's something here. Something." Quickening stood close beside him. "Magic," she whispered. He stared at her, surprised that she had been so quick to recognize the truth he had eluded. "It is so," he murmured, his hand stretched forth, searching. "All about, in the stone itself." "He is here," Quickening whispered. Karisman stepped forward and stroked the wall tentatively, his handsome brow furrowed. "Why does he not respond? Shouldn't he come out long enough to see what we want?" "He may not even know we are here. He may not care." Quickening's soft face lifted. "He may be sleeping." Karisman frowned. "Then perhaps a song is needed to wake him up," he sang. "Awake, awake, old aged king. Come forth from your enfolding lair. We wait without, a worn and tired man, so lacking in all hope and care. Awake, awake, old aged king of stone. Be not afraid of what we bring. 'Tis nothing more than finite spirit, a measure of the song I sing. Awake, awake, O aged king of stone. You who have seen all passing time, share with us, weak and mortal creatures, the truths and secrets of mankind. The song ended, and he stood looking expectantly at the broad expanse of the dome. There was no response. He glanced at Quickening and Walker and shrugged. Not his choice of music, perhaps. I shall think of another. They moved away from the dome and into the shelter of an entry and a building that sat adjacent, seating themselves with their backs to the wall so that they could look out at the dome. They pulled from their backpacks a collection of old bread and dried fruit for their lunch. They ate silently, staring out from the shadows into the grey rain. We're almost out of food, Walker said after a time. And water. We will have to forage soon. Charisman brightened. I shall fish for us. I was a very good fisherman once, although I only fish for pleasure. It was a pleasing way to pass the time and compose. Walker Bow, what did you do before you came north? Walker hesitated, surprised by the question, unprepared to give an answer. What did he do? He asked himself. I was a caretaker, he decided finally. Now what? Charisman pressed, interested. Of a cottage in the land about it, he said, softly remembering. Of an entire valley and all the creatures that lived within it. Quickening declared, her eyes drawing Charisman. Walker Bow preserved life in the manner of elves of old. He gave of himself to replenish the land. Walker stared at her, surprised once again. There was a poor effort, he suggested awkwardly. I will not permit you to be the judge of that, the girl replied. It is for others to determine how successful you have been in your work. You are too harsh in your criticism, and lack the necessary distancing to be fair and impartial. She paused, studying him, her black eyes calm and reasoning. I believe it will be judged that you did all that you could. They both knew what she was talking about. Walker was strangely warmed by her words, and once again he experienced that sense of kinship. He nodded without responding and continued to eat. When they had finished their meal, they stood facing the dome once more, debating what approach to take next. Perhaps there is something to be seen from above, Quickening suggested. An opening through the top of the dome, or an arbitration or aberration in that stone that would suggest a way in. Walker glanced about. There was an ornate building less than a block distant that opened at its top into a bell tower and gave a clear view of the dome below. They crossed to it cautiously, forever weary of trapdoors, and gained its entrance. Sculptures of winged angels and robed figures decorated its walls and ceiling. They moved inside cautiously. The central chamber was vast, the glass of its windows long disintegrated. The furnishing turned to dust. They found the stairway leading to the bell tower and began to climb. The stairs had fallen away in spots, and only the bracing remained. They manoeuvred along its spans, working their way upward. Floors came and went, most ragged, with holes and cluttered with debris. All turned to stone, their collapse preserved in perfect relief. They gained the bell tower without difficulty and walked to the windows facing out. The city of Eld spread away on all sides, misted and grey, filled with the shadows of daylight passing and night's approach. The rain had diminished, and the buildings rose like those stone sentries across the span of the peninsula. The clouds had lifted slightly, and the choppy slate surface of the Titterus and the ragged hills of the mainland beyond, the isthmus, could be seen in snatches through the gaps in the lines of stone walls. The dome sat directly below them, as closed and unrevealing at its top as it had been at its bottom. There was nothing to see, no hint of an opening, no suggestion of a way in. Nonetheless, they studied it for some time, hoping to discover something they had missed. In the midst of their study, a horn sounded, startling them. "Herders!" Charisman cried. Walker and Quickening looked at each other in surprise, but Charisman had already dashed to the south window of the tower and was peering in the direction of isthmus and the cliffs leading down. "It must be them! That is their call!" he shouted, excitement and concern reflecting in his voice. He shaded his eyes against the glare of the dampened stone. "There! Do you see them?" Walker and Quickening hastened to join him. The tunesmith was pointing to where the stairway descended the cliffs from the overlook was barely visible from the mist. There were glimpses of movement to be seen on the stairs, small, hunched figures crouched low as if to hide even from the shadows. Herders, Walker recognized, and they were coming down. "What is it they think they're doing?" Charisman exclaimed, obviously upset. "They cannot come here." The herders faded into a patch of fog and were lost from view. Charisman wheeled on his companions, stricken. "If they are not stopped, they will all be killed." "The herders are no longer your responsibility, Charisman," Walker Bow declared softly. "You are no longer their king." Charisman looked unconvinced. "They are children, Walker. They have no understanding of what lives down here. The wraith or the Morgrin, either one will destroy them. I can't imagine how they slipped past the codon." "In the same way as Hornadese did 10 years ago," Walker cut him short, "with the sacrifice of lives, and still they come ahead. You're not as worried about themselves, it appears, as you are." Charisman wheeled on quickly. "Lady, you've seen the way they react to things. What do they know of the Stone King and his magic? If they are not stopped." Quickening seized his arms and held them. "No, Charisman. Walker Bow is right. The herders are dangerous to you now as well." But Charisman shook his head vehemently. "No, lady, never to me. They were my family before I abandoned them." "They were your captors." "They cared for me and protected me in the only way that they knew how, lady. What am I to do? They have come here to find me. Why else would they be taking such a risk? I think they have never come so far away from home. They are here because they think you stole me away. Can I abandon them now a second time? This time to die for a mistake that I can prevent them from making?" Charisman pulled free, slowly, gently. "I have to go to them. I have to warn them." "Charisman!" The tunesmith was already backing toward the bell tower stairs. "I have been an orphan of the storm all my life, blown from one island to the next, never with family or home, always in search of somewhere to belong and someone to belong to. The herders gave me what I have of both. Little as it may seem to you, I cannot let them die needlessly." He turned and started quickly down the stairs. Quickening and Walker exchanged wordless glances and hurried after. They caught up with him on the street below. "We'll come with you," Walker said. Charisman whirled about once more. No, Walker. You cannot show yourselves to them. If you do, they might think I am threatened by you. Perhaps, even that I am a prisoner. They might attack, and you could be hurt. No, let me deal with them. I know them. I can talk with them. Explain what has happened and turn them back before it is too late. His handsome features crinkled with worry. Please, Walker, lady? There was nothing more to be said. Charisman had made up his mind and would not allow them to change it. As a final concession, they demanded that they be allowed to accompany him, at least as far as was reasonable, to assure that they would be close at hand in any case of trouble. Charisman was reluctant to agree even to that much, concerned that he was taking them away from work that was more important, that he was delaying their search for the Stone King. Both Quickening and Walker refused to argue the point. They walked in silence, single file, along the walkways, down the tunnel streets, travelling south through the city. He would meet the herders at the city's south edge, Charisman told them, sweeping back his blonde hair, squaring himself for his encounter. Walker found him odd and heroic at once, a strange parody of a man aspiring to reality, yet unable quite to grasp it. Give thought to what you are doing, he begged the tunesman at one point. The Charisman answering smile was cheerfully beguiling and filled with certainty. He had done all the thinking he could do. When they neared the boundaries of the city, the rocky flats of the isthmus peeking through the gaps in the building, Charisman brought them to a halt. Wait for me here, he told them firmly. Then he made them promise not to follow after him. Do not show yourselves. It will only frighten the herders. Give me a little time, and I am certain I can make them understand. As I said, my friends, they are like children. He clasped their hands in farewell and walked on. He turned at one point to make certain they were doing as he had asked, then waved back to them. His handsome face was smiling and assured. They watched the mist curl about him, gather him up, and finally cause him to disappear. Walker glanced at the building surrounding them, chose a suitable one, and steered Quickening toward it. They entered, climbed the stairs to the top floor, and found a room where a bank of windows gaped open to the south. From there, they could watch the herders approach. The gnarled figures were strung out along the isthmus, making their way cautiously past the crevices and ruts. There were perhaps 20 of them, several obviously injured. They watched until the herders reached the edge of the city and disappeared into the shadow of the buildings. Walker shook his head. I find myself wishing we had not agreed to this. Charisman is almost a child himself. I cannot help thinking he would have been better off not coming with us at all. He chose to come, Quickening reminded him. Her face tilted into the light, out of the striping of shadows. He wanted to be free, Walker bowed. Coming with us, even here, was better than staying behind. Walker glanced through the windows a final time. The stone of the isthmus flats and the streets below glistened with the damp, empty and still. He could hear the distant thunder of the ocean, the cries of seabirds, and the rushing of the wind down the cliffs. He felt alone. I wonder sometimes how many like Charisman there are, he said finally. Orphans, as he called himself. How many left to roam the land, made outcasts by Federation rule? Their magic not the gift it was intended to be, but a curse they must disguise if they would keep their lives. Quickening seated herself against the wall and studied him. A great many walk about, like Charisman, like yourself. He eased down beside her, holding his cloak about him, lifting his pale face toward the light. I was not thinking of myself. Then you must do so, she said simply. You must become aware. He stared at her. Aware of what? Of the possibilities of your life, of the reasons for being who you are. If you were an elemental, you would understand. I was given life for a specific purpose, It would be terrifying to exist without that purpose. It is not so for you. And Walker felt his face tighten. I have a purpose in my life. The smile was unexpected and dazzling. No, Walker Bow, you do not. You have thrust from you any sense of purpose and made yourself an outcast twice over. First, for having been born with the legacy of Bryn Omsford magic, and second, for having fallen heir to her trust. You deny who and what you are. When I healed your arm, I read your life. Tell me this is not so. He took a deep breath. Why is it that I feel we're so much alike, Quickening? It is neither love nor friendship. It is something in between. Am I joined to you somehow? It is our magic, Walkabout. No, he said quickly. It is something more. Her beautiful face masked all traces of the emotion that flickered in her eyes. It is what we have come here to do. To find the Stone King and take back from him the stolen Black Elf Stone, somehow. Walker nodded solemnly. And for me to regain the use of my arm, and for Morgan Lee to regain the magic of the Sword of Lee. Or somehow. I've listened to your explanations. Is it true that you have not been told how any of this is to be accomplished? Or are there secrets that you hide from us, as P.O. charges? Walker Bow, she said softly. You turn my questions into your own and ask of me what I would ask of you. We both keep something of the truth at bay. It cannot be so for much longer. I will make a bargain with you. When you are ready to confront your truth, and I shall confront mine. Walker struggled to understand. I no longer fear the magic I was born with, he said, studying the lines of her face, tracing its curves and angles as if she were in danger of disappearing, before he could secure a memory of her. I listened once to my nephew Pa Omsford admonish me that the magic was a gift and not a curse. I scorned him. I was frightened of the implications of having the magic. I feared he caught himself, an iron grip that tightened on his voice, and thought instantly. The shadow of something terrifying had shown itself to him, a shadow that had grown familiar to him over the years. It had no face, but it spoke with the voices of Eleanor and Cogline and his father and even himself. It whispered of history, the need and the laws of mankind. He thrust it away violently. Quickening leaned forward and with gentle fingers touched his face. I fear only that you will continue to deny yourself, she whispered, until it is too late. Quickening. Her fingers moved across his mouth, silencing. There is a scheme to life, to all of its various happenings and events, to everything we do within the time allotted to us. We can understand that scheme if we let ourselves, if we do not become frightened of knowing. Knowledge is not enough if there is not also acceptance of that knowledge. Anyone can give you knowledge, Walkabout, but only you can learn how to accept it. That must come from within. So it is that my father has sent me to summon you and PL and Morgan Lee to Eldworth. So it is that the combination of your magic shall free the Black Elf Stone and begin the healing process of the land. I know that this is to be. In time, I shall know how. But I must be ready to accept its truth when that happens. It is so as well for you. I will. No, You will not be ready, Walker, she anticipated him. If you continue to deny the truths already known to you, that is what you must realize. Now speak no more of it to me. Only think on what I have said. She turned away. It was not a rebuff. She did not intend it that way. It was a simple breaking off, an ending of talk. Done not to chastise, but to allow him to space in which to explore himself. He sat staring at her for a time, then turned introspective. He gave himself over to the images her words conjured. He found himself thinking of other voices and other times, of the world he had come from, with its false measure of worth, its fears of the unknown, its subjugation to a government and rules it did not wish to comprehend. Bring back the Druids and paranoia, Alanon had charged them. And would that begin a changing back of the world, of the Four Lands, into what they had been? And would that make things better? He doubted. But he found his doubts founded more in a lack of understanding than in his fears. What was he to do? He was to recover the Black Elfstone, carry it, to disappear paranoia and somehow in some way bring back the key. Yet, what would that accomplish? Coglan was gone. All of the Druids were gone. There was no one but himself. No! He almost screamed the word aloud. It bore the face of the thing he feared, the thing he struggled so hard to keep from himself. It was a terrifying possibility that had scratched and clawed around the edges of his self-imposed shield for as long as he could remember. He would not take up the Druid cause. Yet he was Bryn Omsford's last descendant. He was a bearer of the trust that had been left to her by Alanon. Not in your lifetime. Keep it safe for generations to come. One day, it will be needed again. Words from the distant past, spoken by the Druid shade after death, haunting, unfulfilled. I haven't the magic, he wailed in desperation, in denial. Why should it be me? Why? But he already knew. Need. Because there was a need. It was the answer that Alanon had given to all of the Omsford, to each of them, year after year, generation after generation, always. He wrestled with the spectre of his destiny in the silence of his thoughts. The moments lengthened. Finally he heard Quickening say, It grows dark, Walkabout. He glanced up, saw the failing of the light as dusk approached. He climbed to his feet, peered south into the flats. The isthmus was empty. There was no sign of the herders. It's been too long, he muttered, and started for the stairs. They descended quickly, emerged from the building, and began following the walkway south towards the city's edge. Shadows were already spreading into dark pools. The light chased west to the fringes of the horizon. The seabirds had gone to roost, and the pounding of the ocean had faded to a distant moan. The stone beneath their feet echoed faintly with their footsteps as if whispering secrets to break the silence. They reached the fringe of the city and slowed, proceeding more cautiously now, searching the gloom for any signs of danger. There was no movement to be found. The mist curled its damp tendrils through vacant windows and down sewer grates. There was a sense of hidden presence at work. Ahead, the isthmus flats stretched out into the darkness, broken and ragged and lifeless. They stepped clear of the building walls and stopped. Kara's body was slumped against a pillar of rock at the end of the street, pinned fast by a dozen spears. He has been dead for some time, the blood from his wounds washed away by the rain. It appeared that the herders had gone back the way they had come. They had taken Charisman's head with them. Even children can be dangerous, Walkabout thought bleakly. He reached over for Quickening's hand and locked it in his own. He tried to imagine what Charisman thought had been when he realized his family had disowned him. He tried to tell himself that there was nothing he could have done to prevent it. Quickening moved close to him. They stood staring at the dead tunesmith, wordlessly for a moment more, then turned and walked away back into the city.